right. Well, good morning, church. How you guys doing? Are you excited? This is what you just saw is actually going to be the series that we start next week. And I'm so excited about this series because how many of you want to stand firm better? Stand firm in your faith. Stand firm in your life decisions. Just stand firm for God. Well, we've got a whole series that's going to be a part of. And I just want to encourage you guys. I mean, this is a really, really good series. Great time to invite a friend, a neighbor, a coworker. It's always best to get in on the front part of the series so they can hear the whole message and the whole journey that God is going to lead us through. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also really excited about that candy festival. I mean, how are you excited for the candy festival? I can't wait. It's so good. If you're new to Church of the Cross, I just want to encourage you. One of the things that's really hard to announce or to really even see in the video or some of the different things, just the scope of this thing. When you take a look at it, there's a lot of places that do fall festivals. There's a lot of places that do different things here and there. But this is on a whole nother level. We're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 people on our property. So when we talk about candy and bringing that in, if you're new to the church and you're like, why are they asking for so much candy? It already looks like there's a ton of candy in the wheelbarrow out there. That's true. It does look like that. But we're talking about 1,000 kids that'll probably be on our property because you got mom and dad with that. Well, maybe even more than that. And if they're going to walk around with a bag full of candy from Church of the Cross, it means we need 1,000 bags of candy. And you guys are doing great. We're already collecting that, but we just want to encourage you just to bring that out because this event it's on a whole nother level. So I'm so excited for that one. I'm also excited for the picnic baptism later this afternoon. If you're not heading out there, I want to encourage you to go out there. We are going to have 1,000 chicken wings. Can you? 1,000 chicken wings. Are you hungry already? I'm hungry already. So we want to encourage you to come out. There's going to be a bunch of sauces and different things. We're going to play kickball. It's going to be a lot of fun to do that. And if you're being baptized, I want to remind you to go out there at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock beforehand, and then you'll be a part of the class, and we'll get you baptized, and we'll be excited for that. I want to talk to you today. With the message today, I'm entitling More Than Me. Because if we're going to be successful in this life, we're going to be successful in this journey, there has to be something more than me. If it's up to me, I'm going to fail. If it's up to me, it's only going to go so far. If it's up to me, I'm going to get halfway through the race and the other half's going to look too big and I'm not going to finish. But if there is more than me out there, if there's something greater, if there's more than me, maybe I can actually succeed. Maybe I can actually make it where I want to go. And I want to start out just with this line, and really the whole message is going to kind of build on this idea. God's plan for you, for your life, starts with His promises. God's plan for you, for your life, it starts with His promises. That's where it starts. Whether you're here and you're new and you're checking out God and you're really interested, what is this whole God thing about? Or you've been walking with Him for a long time. God's plan for you, whatever it is, from this moment forward, His plan for you will always, always start with His promises. And I feel like there's a passage that I want to camp on, and I'm going to camp on it the entire time. It's in Exodus chapter 6. And it's a story, and God shows up in a powerful way, and He says some things that are just life-changing. They're life-altering. If you want to know, how do I get on plan with God? How do I get into that mode? What does it look like to come on it? What has God promised that gets me on board with it? That's exactly where we're going to be. And in order to get there, though, I want to give you a little bit of backstory before we can even read this particular passage. At this point in time, when you get into the beginning of Exodus, God's people, God had called a people. This is Israel, the nation of Israel. When you're reading through the Old Testament, you're going to hear about these Israelites and these Hebrews over and over and over. And you're like, why do we hear about this nation? This was a nation that God had called out to make His own. He wanted them to be a light to the world. He wanted to show them what godly living looked like. He wanted to show them what He was like. And the best way to do that, God said, was He was going to call a people to be His own, to demonstrate what God was really about to the rest of the world. And so that's who these Israelites are. The only trouble is, at the beginning of Exodus, they find themselves in slavery. They find themselves in a position where they are underneath the thumb of Pharaoh. Pharaoh in Egypt owns them. When they had originally gone to Egypt, they had gone to escape a famine, and God had provided for them, but the people of God had multiplied. And they had gone from just a handful really of people to over 1 million people. And somewhere along the lines in the middle of that journey, Pharaoh said, I've got to get control of them. It's kind of a fear-based thing. He said, you know what? These are powerful people. They could rise up against me. And so they went from being kind of citizens in Egypt to being slaves in Egypt. And they find themselves there at the beginning. And Exodus begins when they cry out to God. Actually, they cry out, and they don't even know who to cry out to. The text is very clear about that. They just cry out. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you. It's kind of the reaction that you get whenever you stub your toe. You don't really know what to say, and you're not really yelling at anybody or anything really, but you're just yelling. Or you got that next bill in the mail that you weren't suggesting, and you just throw it down, or you walk outside and there's a flat tire, and you just yell out. You're not happy about what's going on. And that's really where Israel found themselves. They just cry out. They're like, we're tired of being slaves. This couldn't be the best that is for us. Isn't there something better than this out there? And what's so cool about that is they cry out, not even really knowing who they're crying out to, but God hears them. That's the way Exodus begins. God hears their cries. You know, even though they're there, even though they don't know who to cry out to, God hears them because God had made some promises to them. And so they find themselves in slavery. Not only that, but God had waited for this time for a certain man to come. His name is Moses. And God was going to use this guy, he was going to use Moses in order to bring his people out of that slavery, to bring his people out of Egypt. Not only are the people of God in slavery, but Moses is in his own version of slavery. Moses had grown up in Pharaoh's court through a miraculous thing. He had gone in the basket and Pharaoh's daughter had found him. He had found himself in Pharaoh's court. But one day he was out and about and his people, he was a Hebrew, he was an Israelite, his people were being mistreated. And whenever his people were being mistreated, he ended up killing an Egyptian slave master. And when he did that, the Egyptians were mad at him and the Hebrews were mad at him. You say, why is that? Why would a Hebrew Israelite be mad at him? Because as a result of that slave owner being killed, that slave master being killed, they made the Israelites work harder. It was like a punishment thing coming around. And so he found himself on the run. He had to flee Egypt. The Egyptians are mad at me. My own people are mad at me. He fled. And he spent 40 years fleeing. 40 years working in the desert, being a shepherd, instead of really stepping into the calling that God had for his life. And what's so cool for this is that the Israelites and Moses needed a word from God. Both of them needed a word from God. Both of them found themselves in positions that they would not have chosen for themselves, and both of them needed God to show up in a great way. And God's going to show up for both of them. He shows up in Exodus chapter 3 for Moses. There's a famous story where God appears before Moses in a burning bush. And in that moment, God makes promises to Moses. And then later on in chapter 6, Moses says, all right, God, what do I need to tell my people? And God rehashes the same sets of promises that he gave to Moses. He tells Moses to communicate to the nation of Israel. And what I like about that is God promised Moses personally and God promised Israel together. When God repeats himself in that kind of way, it's a lean-in moment. You're like, hey, so God's promised this thing twice. What is he saying? Why is this important? These are the promises that he's going to make that's going to bring Israel into their future. It's going to bring Moses into his future. And if we'll let it, the same sets of promises will bring us into our future. And so I want to read this passage in Exodus chapter 6. He's communicating to Moses saying, the same thing I said to you basically, I want you to say to the sons of Israel. So here he goes. Say therefore to the sons of Israel, I am the Lord. I want you to notice how many times God says, I. This is really, really cool. I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from their bondage. I will also redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. Then I will take you for my people, and I will be your God. And you shall know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from underneath the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you to the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you for a possession, for I am the Lord. This is really, really cool. I mean, you catch it already. Who's doing all the work? God's doing all the work, right? This is really interesting. It's a unilateral covenant. That's what that means. It's a unilateral covenant. A covenant is a series of promises. It's a series of things given. There's two ways to do that. You can have a bilateral covenant, which means there's two people involved. You do something for me, and then I will do something for you. But that's not what this is. This is a unilateral covenant. A unilateral covenant means I will do all the work, and you have to do nothing. See, God's telling them, you know what, I'm going to bring you out of this land of Egypt, and I'm going to do all of these things, and I will make the way for it to go through. And guess what? You have to do nothing in this. I'm going to make sure that it happens for you. See, this is really, really powerful. The danger is thinking that anything really in life is just up to me. That the success of the journey, the success of the calling, the success of it all is going to be up to me. That it's my job to make sure that I'm smart enough, equipped enough, powerful enough, in a good enough position, good enough, all of those things in order to make it in life, in order to make it where I need to go. That it's only up to my faculties. It's only up to my abilities. It's only up to my directions. If I can think about it, if I'm smart enough, I will be able to make it. And the truth of it is, there are things that we would need to do in our journeys. There are things that we have to do. But the success of that is not up to me. God is going to have the Israelites do things. There's places that they need to go. There are things that they need to experience. God's going to use Moses in a powerful way. We're going to take a look at that. He's going to use him in a powerful way to do things. But everything that they do, they are passengers for the ride. God is the one who is making it happen. God is the one who is leading them in a new direction. God is the one who's pouring out power in a new and surprising way. Because if it's up to me, there's going to be some things that are coming out. One of the things, like Israel experienced this, if it's up to us, here's the line of thinking. And I don't think it says this in your notes, but there are two lines there. The first one is, my past can overshadow my future. You can write in your notes, if it's up to me. Because that's really where this is coming from. If it's up to me, my past can override my future. If you want to know what this thinking looks like, if I think that it's on me, my past can override my future. Because the Israelites, when you take a look at them as a people, they don't identify themselves as the people of God. They identify themselves as slaves. You see, they've been in slavery for 400 years. Generation after generation after generation. Somewhere early on, we don't know exactly how long, but roughly 400 years, they've been slaves. They've been in Egypt. At some point in time, they lost their rights. And it's happened for so long and for so many generations that they don't think about themselves as the promised people of God. They just think about themselves as slaves. They think about themselves as the people who make bricks every single day. I get up today and I made some bricks. And yesterday, guess what I did? I made bricks. And tomorrow I'm going to make bricks. You know, because all the monuments you see, if you watch the Discovery Channel, History Channel, that kind of thing, you watch a special on Egypt, there's a whole period in Egypt's history. All those monuments and temples, they were built on the backs of the people of God. He had 1 million slaves to build all of these monuments and statues and different things that came out of that. They knew that they were brick builders. This follows them. Even when God calls them out, and even when God does everything they're going to do, this was hard for them to understand. Every time they got in a hard situation, they would just say, maybe we should go back to Egypt. Maybe we should go back. I don't want to die just here in the desert. Maybe we should go back to Egypt. Why is that? Because they were letting their past overshadow their future. And whenever we do that, whenever we go back, whenever we think, well, you know what, maybe I could be the person that God wants me to be, but you don't know what I've done in my past. You don't know what's been going on, my whole life, my whole journey, my whole process. You don't know that. Anytime we do that, we let our past override our future. The second one is, my future relies on my own merit. Really, Israel was about the past. Moses was about the past as well. But what Moses offers us is he really believed that his future relied on his own merit. As a matter of fact, you kind of get this idea, whenever God is appearing to him in the burning bush, whenever God is talking to him really at that moment, God is telling him of all the things that he's going to do. He's making these promises that we really read. He's doing all that. Moses responds by, God, you've got the wrong guy. It's kind of an interesting response, really. He does that 3 times. And one of the times that he does it, it's a really fascinating response. He says, God, you want me to be your figurehead. You want me to be the person that communicates you to Pharaoh. You want me to be that. I'm not really a smooth talker, God. I'm not really the one to share this sort of thing. He doubts in his own ability. And really what he's doing in that moment is he really believes that the success of the journey when he goes before Pharaoh is up to how good he is. If he has what he needs to have, if he can talk smoothly, if he can be convincing really in the middle of it. And God responds to him with these promises. God responds to him by saying, you don't understand. It's not up to you. There's more than you. And really that's what it is. God's promises for both of these sets, for Israel, for Moses, God's promises mean that my life is more than me. My life is more than me. It's more than just my flesh and bones. It's more than just my brain and my IQ and my ability to figure things out. It's more than just my ability to set up my best future. My life, my journey, the world around me is actually more than me. God is telling them it's not up to you, but I am going to be with you and I'm going to make it happen. You don't have to worry about being in the driver's seat. I'm in the driver's seat. You just sit in the back and keep saying yes. Come with me for this journey, and I will take you where you need to go. And I think that this is really amazing because he communicates something in the middle of these promises. He tells them exactly how he's going to deliver them out of Egypt. Both Moses, how he's going to use Moses, and both how he's going to deliver the people out of Egypt. And he says that he's going to do it through his outstretched arm. And I really love that metaphor because when you read the story, what he's going to do is miracle after miracle after miracle. God is going to disassemble the gods of Egypt. And plague after plague after plague, he's going to send. And each one of those plagues is targeted at one of the gods of Egypt. And every single time he's going to prove over and over and over that he's God, not the Egyptian gods. And that he's God, not Pharaoh being God. And he's going to show them what that looks like. And at every step of the way, he's hoping that you'll turn to him. He's hoping that Pharaoh would turn to him. He's hoping that the people of Egypt would turn to him. Why did he do it over and over and over and over? Why didn't he just go for the kill shot with the biggest plague at the end of it? Why did he do it along the way? Why did he do that? He's hoping, he's showing, he's demonstrating that to them. And he's doing that, he calls it by his outstretched arm. And I really feel like that's what Jesus is about for us. That when he performed, like when God performs all the miracles so that Pharaoh and that Egypt will turn to him and that Israel would know really who he's about, isn't that what Jesus did with his outstretched arms? Didn't he go to the cross for us? Didn't he demonstrate with miracle after miracle who he was and what he was all about with compassion and love and mercy, showing us the nature of God, calling us to himself? That's what God is all about. And God wants you to be able to step into that with your whole heart, with your whole mind, with your whole body, with all of your strength, with everything that you had. And so if we dissect these promises, if that's really what's going on, if God's really showing them through what God's doing for them, if God's really shown us through Jesus, through his outstretched arms, what are these promises that he's made and how does that affect us? The first promise that he's made is God promises redemption through Jesus that covers all sin. God promises redemption through Jesus that covers all sin. I love this. He tells them 3 times, the first 3 I statements. First of all, he begins with, I am the Lord. Why does he begin with, I am the Lord? He ends with, I am the Lord. You want to know why? Because he's the one that's going to do it all. But the first 3 promises that he makes in the middle of it, I will bring you out, I will deliver you, and I will redeem you. Here's what he promises them. I will pay for you. I will bring you out. I will cover your entire life that's come before it. Your slavery, your bondage, all of those things that are there, I will pull you out of this and I will begin the process of making you my people. You know what? That's what Jesus offers us. Jesus offers us redemption that covers everything, that covers all sin, that covers all past, that covers all things that we're enslaved to, all things that we feel under bondage for, all things that we've done that we wish that we wouldn't have done, everything that we did this week that pulls us down, that says, you know what, you can't make it. Remember that time when you blew it. You can't do this. Remember that time when it didn't go right. And you know what? He pays for that with everything. You know, if you think about your life in a linear way, if you think about it, when Jesus went to the cross, and this is your birth, and this is your death, and these are all the things in between, and when you graduated, and when you did good, but then when you blew it, and when this relationship failed, but when this relationship succeeded, all those things are in this linear kind of mindset. We have a hard time really believing that God has done this for me. We will, in a moment of quiet, we'll think, yeah, God, you know, you said you forgave me, but what about that one time I did that one thing? And it was on another level. I don't know, God. I don't know that I can really make it where you want me to go. But what about that one thing I did here? But did you really forgive that? And what about this thing over here, God, that I did? And did you really, really forgive that? Did you cover that one as well? I mean, I get it, you know, God. Or maybe, you know, God, I accepted you into my heart and I changed my life. But then, God, I went down a totally different path after that. And what about all those things that I've done after that? You know, God, what about my past? What's going on now? The things that I do in the future, what about that? And see, here's what you have to realize. The entirety of your life was paid for on the cross. All of it. God doesn't see you just as a series of events like that. God sees all of you. He sees your past. He sees your present. He sees your future. He sees all of it. And on the cross, he redeemed all of it. Not just one thing here, not just one thing there. Everything that you've done, everything that you find yourself in bondage now, everything that might happen in the future, all of those things were paid at one point in time. And that's what these promises are about. God is saying, I will bring you out. But God, no, you didn't think about, what about this thing that I did here? I will bring you out. God said, no, God, but what about tomorrow when I mess up, God? Then I'm not on track with you, right? No. I will deliver you out. God, what about that big thing that I did? He's standing there going, I will redeem you. I will take care of it. Your past, your present, your future, all of it, I will take care of you. There's nothing that I can't redeem, and there's nothing I can't pull you from. And to the Israelites, to Moses who was hearing it, and to the Israelites who was hearing this at the time, that was hard to swallow. That was hard to believe. No one really can pull us out of Pharaoh's grasp. No one can really. I can't be the person you want me to be your figurehead. They have those thoughts, but God says, no way. With me, you have more. It's more than you. With God, we have more, and I will do that for you. And this is so powerful, it changes everything for them. And we see that in the next promise that he gives. This is what it unlocks. Not only does he promise to redeem us, to pull us out of that, God promises to adopt you into his family. He promises to adopt you into his family. This is what it says. Romans 3:23 is a famous verse, but we rarely read what comes after it. It says, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's true. We've all done those kind of things. But listen to this. Being justified as a gift by his grace through the redemption which is in Christ Jesus, whom God displayed publicly as a propitiation in his blood through faith. Here's what this means. For we all sin. We all have that moment. That's a little bit about the first promise. We all have those times that we've done something that displeased God. But God has called us out of that. He's justified us through this Jesus, meaning Jesus on the cross went there, and in a legal kind of sense, our debt, our sin was transferred from us and onto Jesus, and God has declared us free. God has declared us not guilty. But then this passage uses a very interesting word that I often have to look up every time I read it because I forget what this word means. It uses the word propitiation. And if you're here, if you've been walking with God for 20 years, sometimes you read that word and you're like, what does that mean again? I've heard it in 10 sermons in my whole life. You know, what does that really mean? Here's what it means. Propitiation means that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross is more than just alleviating us of the legal guilt of sin. It's more than that courthouse moment where the gavel came down and God said, you are free. That's pretty good all by itself. But Jesus is also our propitiation, meaning that God is also pleased now. He has been satisfied now. See, before we were in bad terms, bad understanding, bad relationship with God. Why? Because we had all that guilt and all that sin and all that was on us. But now God is no longer angry. God is no longer displeased. Through Jesus, he is pleased in you. And what that does is it unlocks a different kind of standing. We can now be a part of God's family. The next two promises that he gives, he says, I will take you for my people, and I will be your God. This is relationship stuff. God is saying that, guess what? Before we had this sin between us where we couldn't relate, where we couldn't be friends, where we couldn't be family. But now because of Jesus, I have been satisfied. He's your propitiation. I'm satisfied by that. He was the perfect sacrifice for you. Now you can be a part of my family. We can have relationship. I will call you out of all that stuff. I will call you out of all that bondage, but I'm going to make you my own. You will be my sons and daughters, and I will be your God. That is the promise. I will be with you along the way. And it doesn't matter what happens, you will always be family. You know, it doesn't matter how dysfunctional your family is, you can't get rid of family, right? They're there. They're your family. You can't wish away. It's your brother, it's your brother. It doesn't matter what he does or what he says or how bad he makes Thanksgiving. He's still your brother, right? That's what God says. It doesn't matter what happens along the way. My sacrifice is good enough. I'm pleased with who you are. You are now my family. And nothing can take that away from you. As a matter of fact, I love the way that Jesus communicates this in John chapter 10. This is what he says. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give eternal life to them, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. And I and the Father are one. I love this. Jesus is using the shepherd analogy, and it's like we're sheep in his hand. And he's saying, you know what? No one can grab them from my hand. You want to know why? Because no one can grab them from the Father's hand. And you want to know why that works? Because I and the Father are one. No one, no circumstance, because you're family. You're a part of me now. I'm with you and you're with me, and nothing's going to take that journey. And this is so hard for us to get that it would be that way because no relationship around us really demonstrates that. Anybody ever had a friend who just absolutely worked out in every situation? No. It doesn't work that way. Anybody have a family member who worked out in every situation? No. We all fail each other. And we look at that and we're like, man, there's just really nobody to trust. Nobody will be with me through thick and thin. But God says, you know what? I'm better than your friends. I'm better than your family. I'm giving you a new family, and I will never leave you. And you know what? There's no stipulations on that. Have you guys listened to radio? You know the commercials that are on radio? You know, it'll have some great deal about some new car-a-thon that's going on or some new deal on your wireless. And then it has all the small talk at the end of it. The guy just talks really fast. No substitution, changes, refunds, out for ballot, blah, blah, blah. You know, and it goes through. You know what I'm talking about? It goes so fast, and he doesn't breathe. How does that happen? It's got to be edited together, right? I mean, that's the way that it goes. We're used to things having stipulations. To be, you know what, I'll be your family, but, you know, an offer was only valid from 9/7 to 9/10, you know, and in this case, and, you know, substitution, change of refunds, you know, I thought I was getting a good deal. I took you back. I saved the receipt when I redeemed you. You know, there was that kind of idea. You think there's a lot of that sideways, that small talk. There's none of that. There's no stipulation for that. Jesus says, nothing can grab you from my hand. You're family now. I'm with you. This is a new kind of existence. It doesn't matter if no one's ever shown you that before. I, your God, will show you that for the first time. I will be there for you through thick and thin. I'm not only going to pull you out of slavery, but I will always be with you because now I am your God and now you are my people. And that's a great promise. There's one more promise that he gives through this. This is the last one. God promises results for anyone willing to go on the journey with him. God promises results for anyone willing to go on the journey with him. I like this. This is what he says. I will bring you to the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you for a possession. I love that. I love that God says that. You know, that's exactly what he did. See, if you're Israel, you're listening to this. And even though you identify with being a slave, that's what you identify with. And God's saying, I'm going to call you out of that. In the back of their mind, they knew. You know, in the old stories, the stories that we tell, that our grandfathers tell, God had made a promise to our forefathers. He had told Abraham, and he had told Isaac, and he had told Jacob that we were going to be his people. And more than anything, that's what they wanted. They wanted to be out from underneath Pharaoh. They wanted to have their own nation. They wanted to have that blessing that God had promised them. They wanted to have this better life. They knew this can't be the best. That's why they're crying out. That's why that started the whole story of Exodus. They knew that. And that's what God's promising them. I'm going to redeem you. I'm going to be your God. And I'm going to make sure that you become my people. The results that you're looking for, I have certified. I have given my name. I am the Lord. I am the Lord. At the beginning of this passage, at the end of this passage, I will see you through. You will get the results that you are looking for. For Moses, it's the same way. God is going to use Moses. As a matter of fact, in chapter 7, God tells Moses that he will be as God to Pharaoh. In other words, when God looks at Moses, or when Pharaoh looks at Moses, Pharaoh is going to see God at work through Moses. It's not like he's just going to be Moses anymore, but Moses is going to represent God to Pharaoh. Here's this guy on the run, murderer on the run, but God is guaranteeing results. You will be as God to them. You will show them what I'm like. You will do the miracles that I have commanded. All of that will work out. Pharaoh will learn that he is not God through you. Moses didn't think that was possible, but God certified it. God said, I promise you this will work out for you. And after all, isn't that what Jesus has done for us? He did it for Israel. He did it for Moses. But isn't that really what the cross is all about? Isn't that really what the journey is all about? That Jesus said, you can have life and life abundantly. Your life does not have to be defined by your past. Your life does not have to be defined on whether you think you're good enough or you're smart enough or you have the merit or you have the skills in order to be successful. But your life is dependent upon the God who is good enough. The God who is sufficient, the God who is successful, the God who is smart enough, strong enough, has all the faculties and resources that you need in order to be successful. And that your future, your settlement, your promised land is not up to you because there's more than you in this deal. It's up to God to bring you through. And God has said, you will make it. It may look messy along the way. It's going to look messy for Moses. It's going to look messy for Israel. If you read, this is not the most perfect journey. It's the most perfect God leading them, but they're not going to respond in the most perfect way through the journey. But God will take them there. They do go to the promised land. They do get their land. God does use Moses, and God will do the same for you. What God did for Israel, what God did for Moses is available for you today. And what I want to encourage you on, maybe you're here today and you're checking out God. Maybe you're here today and something happened this week, something happened this month, this year. It was 10 years ago. And you really believe that it's wrecked your future. You really believe that that bondage is there and that it's changed everything. It's held you back and that you can't be the person that God wants you to be. His promises tell a different story. His promises to you tell a different story. And I'll tell you what God's telling you today. Just turn to me. Will you believe? Don't move a muscle. Don't do anything. Just believe first. Do you believe that I'm good for it? Can you take that first statement, that last statement? Can you for 1 second just say, I am the Lord? Will you turn to him and just believe that he will take you through that journey? We say, God, all right, from this day forward, I don't know what that's going to look like. I've never seen a life without slavery, God. I've never seen a life with this kind of family you're talking about, God. I've never seen the results that you're saying that you would take me on, God. I've never seen that before, but God, I'm willing to believe that you are God and that you have the ability to take me on that journey. Are you willing to believe that? Will you step into that? Maybe you've known God for a long time, and just your path just went a different kind of way. You knew what was right, and you chose the other way anyways, and you feel like, you know what, I can't. Yeah, I had a shot back here, but I can't anymore. Will you allow God's promises to take you back on the journey that he wants you on? Will you allow him to get you back on track? Will you allow him to show you that the whole time you've been his, and that he still has plans for you, and that nothing can take those plans away because you are family? Whatever it is, will you believe that today? Will you let that wash over your life? Because God is that good. He wants to adopt you and to redeem you and to settle you into this new life. Let's pray.